Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in internet shitlords. And, today I could have recorded, there have been, since the last video I did here, there have been a large number of scandals in the D&D world, and all of them of, SJWs attacking other SJWs for not SJWing right. A continuation of that. So many that, I've already mentioned, like the thing with Adam Koebel and that webzine and Ravenloft and all this. There's been all this stuff that has been calling people out, right? Where it's always been other SJWs arguing that they're not SJWing enough, right? So like in the last ones have included. Maybe at some point I'll do a video about the gay D&D sourcebook that has been accused by other leftists of either being the wrong kind of gay or just not gay enough. Now today there is some thing that was like a for women only RPG, but then it had like some no scenes in it or something, and so that wasn't good enough. It's in isolation, all of these are funny. They're all popcorn eating, but then it's like together, you put them all together and you start to wonder, maybe we finally reached that moment of critical mass where literally nothing is good enough for these people anymore, like nothing. And they're going to start just destroying themselves by viciously attacking each other as not woke enough. Maybe. We can hope, right? Hope springs eternal. But I decided instead of all of that, I'm just going to do a review. And I'm doing this review of Exiled and Eris, the role-playing game of sword and blaster fantasy, which is published by Presses Intermedia. Now, I should comment... Oh, Big Chungus is just off camera here. Look at this. I should comment that I have had several products published by Presses Intermedia. She's getting her brain massaged. She needs to. She's a cat of very little brain. And so, I just want to be transparent about the material that I had nothing to do with this game. I make no money from it. I'm not being paid to promote it in any way. I am confident that even though Presses Intermedia has published several of my products in the past, that I will be able to do a fair assessment of this product. Just like, if you've watched my reviews, I have a whole playlist of reviews, of game reviews that you can feel free to check out. I think you'll see that for the most part, I can be pretty objective. I'll be favorable when I'm favorable. I'll be tough when I see something I think is a bad call. And, I'll try to portray more about like what a game could be for, like for what audience. In a fairly objective way. So, Exiled and Eris, got it here next to the old school companion for comparison. It's in large print. It's not as many pages, I think, but anyways. Exiled and Eris, it has all the look right from the outside of like one of these planetary fantasy type of games, right? It says here, hunt for lost treasure among the ruins of a bygone age. This role-playing game inspired by pulp tales of planetary romance, sword and sorcery, and the Wild West. Right. This game was written by Christian Konkel, and then it had the layout was by Brett Bernstein, and the introduction tells you what the game is, basically the deal of the game, right? And it is exactly planetary fantasy, right? To imagine the techno-fantasy world of Exiled and Eris, some visual cues. Imagine the Wild West with swords and 70s blaster pistols, okay? Imagine a female espionage agent in a futuristic skin-tight bodysuit. Well, that's inappropriate. And Clint Eastwood-style poncho karate kicking an orc in the face. Imagine a grizzled veteran and his buddy, a robot from a proud lineage of noble warriors, cracking open the tomb of a long-dead king wanting to wake the immortal six-legged genetically engineered guardian beast from his thousands of years of suspended animation. Try saying that 3 times fast. Anyways, the idea, we get it. It's gonzo, planetary fantasy, semi-serious. You get a map here of a place, and it details some of the different areas. And from what I've read of this, it's all quite good. You know, like you got the kind of a home base in the free city of Asik Sahir. I don't know. At least they're not using a ton of apostrophes like certain products do, Venger. And it's a wild sort of alien place. Although actually, if you read the material that they have, I mean, there's a big glossary, but the glossaries of like places mostly, right? It's not like in some other of these types of games make two big mistakes. One is they make ridiculously complex words full of apostrophes that, you know, are basically unpronounceable because they think it's cool. And second, they end up making common words have new meanings, right? Like they're so obsessed with it sounding exotic that they like rename the sword or the wheel or a horse or whatever, right? And this is mostly stuff that is just setting names of places, so no different than any other fantasy game, fantasy place. Got some weird little dudes there. But, you know, there's also the implication at a certain point, and this might be, I don't remember where it was, but it was in there anyways, that this world might actually just be Earth in the very, very distant future. So like kind of shades of Buck Rogers, you know, that's all perfectly good stuff for the genre. Question is, what about the system? Now, here's the thing. This game, Exiled and Eris, is not an OSR game. There's also absolutely no reason why it shouldn't have been an OSR game, except maybe, I don't know when it was actually first written. Maybe that's the thing I'm missing here. Well, no, 2015, 2016, you know, by then, this definitely could have been an OSR game, and yet it failed to be so, which is a big mistake, because basically there's nothing, the system itself is perfectly fine. It's so fine because it's actually very, very close to, you know, D&D and an OSR game. So this is basically what they could call a fantasy heartbreaker, right? It's a game that's like a pseudo D&D. The rules sufficiently different that they're not compatible to D&D, but similar enough that you immediately recognize what you're looking at here. And it's kind of pointless, right? You go, why wouldn't you just do D&D here? So like, for example, the skill checks, they're done with a D20, to which you add ability scores, bonuses, and advantages and situational modifiers versus a difficulty. But it's a D20 versus difficulty, right? The difference is that the stats are a bit different. So, you know, it increases the range of checks, but it's still the same basic D20 check of like the D20 system. Creating a character, well, you will see, you know, there's very nice stuff here. Let's start with creating a character, because this is the thing. This game has a lot of really good stuff. There's a lot of really good stuff in here that if this had been an OSR game, especially at the time, especially if you're talking about 5 years ago now, right? If this had come out in 2016, it had been an OSR game, it would have been a radically innovative OSR game. Right, because that was before a lot of stuff. I think it might have been. Yeah, it was after. It probably came out around the same time as Dark Albion and Cults of Chaos. It was before Lion and Dragon, I think. Unless it actually came out earlier, later than that, and the copyright is earlier for some reason, but maybe it's a reprint. But anyways, the thing is, you've got a lot of stuff here that would have made it a top-notch OSR game if it had been done to an OSR system. So you've got, you know, random tables to determine where you come from, to determine, you know, which of the city-states. There's short explanations like that glossary and stuff back there. Ignore that. Just look at this. This is all the stuff you need here, right? Ramanam, a city built at the mouth of the Raman River, precariously close to the dark, humid jungle. Its inhabitants live in the river and in the swamp, former members of the League of Timan, currently under Vrildarian occupation. Right? Yeah, that's where you come from, right? Or you come from other places. There's even, you know, non-human kingdoms and stuff like that. So all of that is good stuff. the refinery city, like so many wonderful tables. You guys know I have a thing for tables, and this has got some good quality ones. Look at this. What is your professional training? Right. So you roll to see what you trained as: martial, civilian, criminal, academic, wilderness, special. You get certain starting professions, so to say. Like this is like at least a profession you trained for, based on which of those it was, and then you get a description of what each of them are, right? So if you were an archer, well, you look up here, you learned the skills of archery from a barbarian tribe. You're now proficient in the short bow and often firing while mounted, right? And so you gain a background and a skill. And again, but all of this could super easily be, all you have to do is change the attributes to 3d6. And take a look at, speaking of the attributes, this is the big innovation. There's 8 attributes instead of 6. But of those 8, you have wits and willpower. Put those together and it's wisdom. So you got wisdom, intellect, charisma, right? And then up here, you have strength, stamina, and dexterity and agility, which are the same thing. You put them as dexterity. So there are 6 attributes here, right? All you had to do is, and instead of 2d6 plus 4, you roll 3d6, just like normal. And then it would be an OSR game. That would have been all that you really had to do, is change that, go with the standard d20 roll, and you're golden, right? So why didn't they do this? Speaking of which, as you can see, there's a lot of interior art. Some of it is so-so, some of it is better. It's a range of stuff. So you pick a race. It could be human. You can be a cyberoid. That's a cyberoid there. That's kind of cool. There's even details about repairing cyberoids. You could be a Zaki, which is a reptile man of the eastern desert. You could be a Deru, which is a mole man. That's what those little guys were. A mole man from the Under Kingdom. It's awesome to have mole men, right? And again, like the attributes, it's the same stuff. You get an attribute modifier. They take question of size, movement rate, armor bonus, special abilities or weaknesses, and inherent. It's D20, dude. Why did you want to change it? I just don't understand, because like, let me give you guys a hint. If you're a game designer, you're trying to design a game, so you think you can do better than D&D. Great. If your game is going to be some, way out there, point by, weird mechanic stuff. Oh, there's no ability scores. You decide, you resolve combat by, playing crokinole. Your experience point system is based on cookies, then yes, that's not there's no reason, if you want to do some weirdo game like that, that's great. It'll be a weirdo game. It'll probably barely sell. Now, if you want to do a game because you think, well, I could just improve OSR, and you think of like 2 or 3 improvements, improve D&D, and you think of just like 2 or 3 improvements that you really want to put in there, but then because you don't want to be just like D&D, you switch up a bunch of other stuff. You're basically creating a system that has none of the advantages of D&D, with the disadvantage of having to learn a different system and convince other people to play that system, instead of going with an OSR game that's just got variant mechanics. Like, you look at my game, Lion and Dragon, right? Lion and Dragon is not a clone game, so it's not just a copy of D&D. But it's got all the standard things to make it compatible: 6 attributes, hit points, armor class, saving throws. Unless you have fundamental problems with those few things, you can make an OSR game, right? And if the real deal is not that you want to change, I think that this guy had other things that he found interesting, he wanted to innovate with, that he decided to change everything because of those. But he could have just done OSR and added those things, right? Like, for example, I didn't want the magic system. I took out the entire Vancian magic system in Lion and Dragon and replaced it with a system of ritual magic that is based on real medieval grimoire source books, right? And so that's something I changed around completely. I didn't like how the advancement was pretty much static in OSR games, that you always knew what you were going to get at each level. So I made random advancement tables, added that in, plug and play, right? Like, this is the whole point of the OSR. You can make wildly innovative stuff and keep it OSR, as long as you just keep the skeletal core of what an OSR is. So we got some more here. Myrmidons, which are like artificial humans. The savants, which are genius philosopher mutants or something. And you have some derived attributes. So you got some karma points, which I think is one of the things the guy wanted to add. And then you have power points, which is, he wanted to have a magical system that was based on mana. You could do that. It could still be OSR if you'd done that and just kept the rest, You've got an experience point system that is pretty standard. It's not that dissimilar from Lion and Dragons, which is an OSR game, where you, for every achievement of story goals or winning a tactical victory or entertaining their character portrayal, they get 0 to 2 XP per session, right? Well, in mine, you just get 1 every session, and that's it. You get 1 extra if you do like a best role player award or something like that. That's it. So he's basically got the same experience system I do in an OSR game, but his is not an OSR game. You see where I'm going with this? I think the skill system is one of the big issues of why he wanted to have a non-OSR game. I think he thought of like something that he thought was a really sophisticated, clever skill system. And I gotta say, there's nothing wrong with the skill system. There's nothing wrong with anything that he's presented so far. Okay? Nothing. Except that, like, you got this, skill points, primary, tertiary, secondary, bonuses, specialties, advantage ranks, right? You'll notice that up till now, everything else was rolled. It was rolled randomly. And here, all of a sudden, we get to like this point-buy system, and not just any point-buy system, but like a really freaking complex one with like primary, tertiary, and secondary bonuses and specialties and all that stuff, right? So it's kind of funny because he's kind of made a system where this will suddenly, like right now, up till here, you could have made a character in 2 minutes, and then suddenly you hit this wall of having to point by your skills, right? If he just done it in some randomized fashion or made it just a simpler system, I think this system could have been so much simpler. Similar to the system that I use in Lion and Dragon or in and then many other, I'm not saying that that's my proprietary system, just the idea of adding +1 bonuses to basic checks. Yeah, that comes out of the D20 system. That's something that a lot of people have used. You just, instead of worrying about buying skill point buys, you just assign them, right? And it's, different classes will have more or less skills, but you don't need to have specific points. But if you like a game with complex skill points and skill specialties, then here you have what looks like a perfectly good set of rules for managing that, right? All sorts of material of skill checks that you can do. I'm trying to decide if that's like hair or the guy has a twig growing out of his head. I don't know. Anyway. Like I said, some of the art better than others. This seems pretty cool, actually. I kind of like it's like a gray alien dude with like funny armor, and then there's like the giant lizard. Yeah, that's good art there. Anyway, then there's also advantages, right? And again, there's like feats. And again, it becomes point buy, right? So we were doing so well as far as having random tables instead of point buy. If you had random gifts, that could have been good. Or if you just had random generation of your background, and then that tells you what gifts you can pick, give him a list, give a player character a list of 5, let him pick 2 or 3. That'll speed up the game so much more than having a system where instead you have to like calculate all these points of how it's going to be presented. Plus, of course, some of the special abilities can have like multiple ranks that you buy into and gives you special bonuses. They're not terrible. Again, nothing here is terrible. I'm not a big fan of feat systems to begin with. That leads to, and skill point systems either, because both of those lead to min-maxing and players carefully trying to plot out what character they're going to have, not based on what the background is or what they would like it to be, but based on what's going to be mechanically best. And, so I'm never been a huge fan of that. But if you like that sort of stuff, if you like point buy, if you like having feats that you can pick out, X number of points of feats out of a list of so many feats, so then go for it, right? Equipment section. This is all good here, weapons and equipment. Is there something here that I needed? No. There's all weapons and equipment, weapons, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So the final steps, you create your personality, appearance. You can even, there's even a D12 table for distinctive features, you know, so, but not for skills or for feats. Those have to be with a complete complex point fight system. And then the other part was, you know, the magic. You want to have like, you've got power points that you use, so that you can spend to use these different sorcerer's powers. The sorcerer's powers are, of course, like not really just like magic. They're like, you know, space fantasy magic, right? So they're like a combination of magic and psychic powers. Everything is very good in terms of connection to genre here. So lots of different powers too. Skill check format. I don't think, you know, this is, again, the skill check is only slightly different in that you add your whole attribute instead of the attribute modifier. You could have done this as D20, dude. Exiled and Eris would probably have been like a really successful OSR game. I'm sure it's a successful game now, but I'm betting it would have sold more if it was compatible with, you know, Chalt, and if it was compatible with World of the Last Sun, if it was compatible with like all the weird places that you see in Lamentations of the Flame Princess, and, you know, Swords and Sorcerers of Hyboria or whatever. You know, the fighting system is, again, super duper similar, extremely similar to the OSR system. It just has like some more complex maneuvers you can do that have been detailed out, right? Like they've been explained in terms of how to achieve certain things with more detail than you usually see in the OSR game. Maybe that was another part of what he wanted, but you could have done that in an OSR game. You could give, you know, an OSR game, if you're writing an OSR game, you could say, well, combat section, attack. You roll a d20 to attack. You have to get higher than the armor class. Here are the modifiers. No other explanation. Then you move on, right? Or if you want to, you can say, well, you know, this is how you do a disarm maneuver. And then there are these things that happen. And if you succeed in the disarm maneuver, then this happens. But if you fumble, you roll on this table, right? You could like have a combat section that's like super intricately detailed with subroutines, you know, for lack of a better term. And that would also be OSR, right? Like this could have been OSR. I keep thinking back to how this could have been OSR, and I'm sorry to say it. But, you know, because there's a lot of good stuff here. There's a lot of stuff that would have been so easy to adapt into an OSR version. It is, of course, from my point of view, a little bit more rules heavy than I prefer. I like kind of a faster, looser system. It doesn't have everything explained in a lot of detail, but I think it's a good system, and that's the significant part, you know. Here you have a kind of Elric sort of scene there. Stuff on combat conditions and all that sort of stuff. Injuries. Medical treatments. Some sort of Jedi type dude or a wizard. You've got another section on opponents. Definitely not a politically correct sort of. The SJWs might take a break from like attacking each other and attack this air pirate captain. You know, like, oh, she's in a cat suit and she has a whip and she looks sort of like, I don't know, like Cat Girl or something. And but she's got a badass sword. You know, there's something quite a message being sent there, you know, but it is planetary fantasy, right? That's the sort of stuff that's supposed to be in it. Perfectly good stuff, right? So a good section of pre-made NPCs there that are, you know, archetypes, you could say, is a celestial warrior. That's what the Jedi types are, celestial warriors. And then you have like, you know, all these dudes that you can already use. So that's useful because you know why? Because that saves time. Right, I don't need to like stat out each thing. I could just start with this as like the breakdown of each of these like, you know, mercenary dudes and then you know, adjust them. But you know what doesn't save time is having point buy skills and then feats, right? So a very good section of opponents, which later on you get to like the Sin and the Jan, which are sort of like magical spirits or something like that. They're entities. And then you have monsters and monstrosities, crab creatures, of course. That's good stuff. So another monster section. You get quite a good amount of stuff for, the book. It's a good size, lots of stuff here, lots of creatures. You get to the Game Master section. I think that's it. Yeah. Those are all creatures, and then you're at the Game Master section, which gives you like some standard advice, sample plots of everything, miniature adventures, motivations and rewards, stuff for patrons, and other rewards. Nothing out of this world. Stuff on artifacts, which are kind of like, super items, wondrous items or magic items or what have you. And you got a shorter selection of those than you do of the monsters and opponents, but a good enough amount. And good enough that you know what to do beyond that. And then there's a kind of adventure here. Tomb of the Architect. So, pretty neat. And then that's it, basically. So this is about 166 pages. The character sheet. My biggest comment on is the setting material is really good. The system should not, it has no reason to exist. Like a lot of this, you could have taken all the cool stuff out of that system, tacked it onto an OSR skeleton, and it would have worked. So, like, the core system of Exiled and Eris didn't need to be. You could have done it OSR, and if you'd done it OSR, it would have sold better. So the only reason not to is either you didn't realize it, or you have some kind of philosophical objection to D&D based rules that insisted that somehow your system of rolling a d20, adding modifiers versus difficulty level is purer and better than the system that is, roll a d20 plus modifiers versus a difficulty level. I don't think that's the case. I think maybe it was just, maybe the person who wrote this at the time didn't even know about the OSR, but it's an example of a bit of a pity. Now, that said, there's stuff here you could see using in the OSR, the background tables and stuff for like weird setting places. That's good stuff, and there's no reason why, like, if you're an inventive DM, you can't just very slightly modify some of these details. Like you could get this game, if you're an OSR dude, you could get this game and you could just adapt it to OSR standards very, very simply. You just change around a couple of things, right? So if the idea of like the really detailed skill systems, the detailed feats, the detailed combat system, but they're all at their core, they're all super similar to what you see in OSR stuff, right? The feats are still feats. The skills are still, bonuses to rolling skill checks, and even the combat is just elaborations on the mechanics of combat as you could use them in an OSR type game, right? So you could adapt this. It could have uses, Maybe you like it just as it is. It's not that different. So like you can bother to learn it and figure out the way to do it the non-OSR way, and maybe you'll enjoy it. It's really close to OSR. It's not very far at all. And it is a really fine, especially considering it's like a generic one. Maybe because it's a generic one, because it's a world. What I don't mean it's generic in the sense of no setting, because it obviously has the Eris setting, and you've seen that details quite a lot about it. But in the sense that it is meant to be very much kind of the standard Sword and Planet setting, and it is meant to be one that is not directly inspired from any other, like it's not John Carter of Mars, it's not a specific setting. So therefore it allows it to have, to be kind of a platonic ideal of the Sword and Planet genre type of thing. I thought it was really well designed, and I thought the system was fine, and just it could have been OSR. That's all I can say about it. But if you like this sort of stuff, you should check it out. I'm sure you'll find stuff here that'll be cool that you can kind of rip off with some minor adjustments. You're not going to need an awful lot of adjustments to make it OSR, to put as like things and creatures and opponents and stuff like that to use in races and stuff like that to use in your weird fantasy OSR games if you wanted to, you know. So anyways, that's basically it. You can pick up Exiled in Eris from Presses Intermedia. I'll put a link in the description below of where you can buy it. It'll be the first item. Oh, Chungus is in a cuddly mood today. She's coming up to me and nudging my head. She says it's time to finish. And yes, you're right, it is, Chungus. So we're gonna end this video just saying, if you like this video, please subscribe. Check out the playlist of the other reviews. Check out my other playlist. Warning, a lot of my other videos tend to be mostly about a little more ideological than my reviews. Let's put it that way. If this is the first video of mine you've seen. And feel free to share this video anywhere you feel people will be drawn to it. And if you want to support me besides that, well, I have a Patreon and a PayPal, and you can just toss money at me directly from there. The links are in the description. But I would suggest you check out buying my products, right? Like the Old School Companion, which has 300 pages almost, no, 267 pages of stuff that you can bring into your OSR game that are going to be like all based on actual medieval myth, legend, and history. Really cool stuff. Or my role-playing games like Lion and Dragon, my settings like Dark Albion. Or if none of those are super expensive. Somebody pointed out on Twitter there, the Lion and Dragon is, the hardcover version of Lion and Dragon, which is a 140-page book, costs $23 for a hardcover, right? So it's not expensive, right? My games aren't. I try to keep my games reasonable, and you could get these if you can't quite afford those for some reason. Though there's also the RPG Pundit Presents PDF series. Check it out. The link is in the description. I have 104 different PDFs, short PDFs ranging anywhere from the shortest one is like 2 pages all the way to 30. And prices from 99 cents to like $5.99, $4.99 maybe, that are all based on stuff in the OSR. Some of them are weird fantasy, some of them are medieval authentic fantasy, some of them are really serious, some of them are kind of funny, some are adventures, some are source books, some are items lists, monsters, some of them are setting stuff, cities or places, all variety of things. You're going to find them. 104 of them. That makes me already one of the most prolific designers around, right? I've written, just those. I've written 144 different products, even if they are kind of short ones. But you're going to find something you like. And that's like you're buying me a coffee and you're also getting something for yourself, something that hopefully you will use. And I think you will. I think you'll use it and enjoy it if you pick it up and if you're a gamer. So be sure to check those out. And, fundamentally, just share the video, keep promoting us so that we keep on making stuff like this. Thank you very much. And currently smoking. This is Lorenzetti Volcano plus Blue Boar. Goodbye, Chungus. She said goodbye.